Kambhampati. I know it's slightly a long last name. I like to call myself a computer scientist because I love computers, I love programming. Currently, I'm a product manager. I've co-founded a company and I'm working on another one. And I'm a tinkerer. Anybody know Tinkerbell here? I like to dabble in technologies. I like to build something on my spare time. So I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit more about my personal journey and how I got here. A lot of questions. Where did I come from? How come I have such a long last name? Tinkerer, is that even a word? Let's see. Maybe I just made it up. So my story begins, as you can tell, from India. I come from India. I was born there in a small city called Hyderabad. That is, if you have heard about India, if you have heard about a city called Bangalore, has anybody here heard of the city called Bangalore? Yes. So Hyderabad is 500 kilometers south of Bangalore, and that's where I came from. Now, my story begins when I was in 8th grade. This was a time, maybe most of you cannot relate. I have to ask you a question. Does anybody here have no TV at home? No TV? You don't have TV at home? Oh, that's interesting. How about no phone? No phone at all? No cell phone, no landline, nothing? You have a landline? Okay. How about no internet? No internet? But you have internet at school? Okay. So I come from a time when not everybody at home had TVs, and the people who had televisions, most of them had black and white televisions. Who here knows of black and white TVs? Oh, have you seen black and white?
Technology you speak of.
Exactly. So do I look ancient? Maybe I'm a gazillion years old, if gazillion is a word that you guys still use. At least my middle schooler uses it. Okay. So this was about 25 years ago, where there was no TV, no internet, no phones. And I can tell you an incident. My brother was in States, in United States at that time. And if I had to make a call, I had to go to the post office and book a call. It's called a trunk call. And I had to wait because somebody sitting at a switchboard had to connect the lines so that I could talk to my brother here. The way urgent messages went by were not by texts or by phone calls. There was something called a telegram, which you would send between different places, and a postmaster or somebody would come and deliver it to your home. So that's the era I lived in, but then that was not really such a long time ago. It was only about 20, 25 years ago, but it feels like a long, long time, like ancient times. So when I was in 8th grade, I had to really pick one of the languages. And just like a lot of people here, do you guys hate vegetables? No? Oh, you hate vegetables? Yes. And I always hated languages, especially learning grammar for most of the Indian languages. Do you know that a lot of Indian languages have a way to describe objects? Most of the objects are either feminine or masculine. I could never tell the difference whether the chair was feminine and the table was masculine. So it was always challenging for me to learn the grammar part of the language. And when I was in 8th grade, I had an opportunity to skip learning a language and learn computer science. And my choice was very simple. I said, hey, hopefully computer science and computers really don't care whether something is masculine or feminine. So let me just go pick computer science. Simple choice. But it was a great choice that I made because I learned a lot about problem solving, right? Can you just tell a computer, go do this? No, you have to take the problem, break it into small chunks, and write it in the form of a programming language as to how a computer can solve the problem. So that's what I learned. And I want to tell you an incident which happened when I was in 10th grade. Now, let me tell you how the education system in India worked back then, at least when I was growing up. You got to do some prescribed subjects up until 10th grade, and after 10th grade, you had a choice to pick any one of the lines. You could either pick something from biology, from math, economics. There were various other streams. But apart from computer science, one of my favorite subjects was biology, and I always wanted to do something in the area of biology. So this was my school annual day. I got the local education minister was giving me the best student award, and he puts me on the spot and he says, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I never really thought about it. You know, I never had any specific goal that, oh, you know, I wanted to be a scientist or an astronaut or a civil engineer, nothing. All I knew was what I liked learning at that particular point in time. But now that he put me on the spot, I said, let me think of something really cool, which most of the people here wouldn't understand. And I was reading, like I said, biology was my area of interest, and I said, I want to be a genetic engineer. And most of the people went, what, genetic what? Yeah, I want to be a genetic engineer, and then once I learn more about it, I'll let you guys know what a genetic engineer is. So that was pretty interesting, and then after that, I started thinking about being a genetic engineer, you know, looking at biology, pursuing interest in that space. But then, like I mentioned, I went to the high school was like in 11th grade, I had to make a choice. And there were multiple ways that I could choose the career. And there was no coming back where I was in India. If you chose math, physics, and chemistry, you just pursued engineering. If you chose biology, chemistry, and physics, you went on to become a doctor. If you chose economics, you went on to do something in the area of commerce. So there was no mix and match. At the age of 16, 17, you had to pretty much decide which way you were going. And the school I went to had an option of taking math, physics, chemistry, and computer science. So I was stuck between biology, chemistry, and physics, and taking math, physics, chemistry, and computer science. And I really didn't want to let go math. I wasn't great at it. It was a difficult subject for me, but I really enjoyed it. So this was the choice that I had to make, and I went with computer science. And there was pretty much no looking back after that. I thoroughly enjoyed programming. You wouldn't know some of the ancient languages, but I started learning BASIC, Pascal, COBOL. Do you know any of those? Have you heard any of any of those languages? No. I've learned C, C++, Java, most of the programming languages. And I did this during the time that I was doing my bachelor's in electronics. Just now, you put together a Raspberry Pi board. That's what I learned in electronics. How do the circuits work? How does signal processing work? How do you put microprocessors together? Have you ever heard of the microprocessing numbering system, maybe 8084, 8085? Not many of you would have heard about it. These were like basic microprocessors that you would program to get few things done, just like you did right now with your Raspberry Pi. I then went on to do a master's in computer applications, where I learned more about software, more about how applications are built, like how do you host a website, how do you program in one of these languages, how does a database work, things of that nature. But I also came across about computer networks. And it was interesting for me that I couldn't really comprehend how one computer spoke to the other computer, how you could send an email on one side and it showed up, right across multiple oceans in a matter of few seconds. It was very intriguing to me, and that's what made me come to United States, because that's when I decided to do my computer science, master's in computer science. It was my second master's with emphasis on computer networks. So I went to University of Southern California. A lot of adults usually call it University of Spoiled Children. I spent a couple of years there because it's one of the best universities for computer networks. Before I go any further into my story, I think you guys should at least get an understanding of what computer networks is, and so let's watch this short video.
So, how does the internet work? Most of us know how to use the internet without actually understanding how it works, sort of like electricity in your home. You use it every day, but may not understand the mechanics behind it. And if the electric grid is difficult to understand, then the internet must be impossible, right? Wrong. In the next few minutes, I'll put you in the top 10% of people who understand how the internet actually works. For SecurityCatalyst.com, I'm Aaron Titus. Whenever most people think of the internet, this is what comes to mind. The internet is not a bubble cloud, even in the new age of cloud computing. The whole fuzzy cloud picture was created by people more concerned about job security than education. This is the internet. The internet is a wire, actually buried in the ground. It might be fiber optics, copper, or occasionally beamed to satellites or through cell phone networks, but the internet is simply a wire. The internet is useful because two computers connected directly to this wire can communicate. A server is a special computer connected directly to the internet, and web pages are files on that server's hard drive. Every server has a unique Internet Protocol address, or IP address. Just like a postal address, IP addresses help computers find each other. But since 72.14.205.100 doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, we also give them names like Google.com, Facebook.com, or SecurityCatalyst.com. So this is how it works. Your computer at home is not a server, because it's not connected directly to the internet. Computers you and I use every day are called clients, because they're connected indirectly to the internet through an internet service provider. Here we'll pretend that this is my home laptop and I'm using DSL. Now let's pretend that I want to visit AOL.com, which is coincidentally both a server and an ISP. I hop onto my laptop with DSL, go through my ISP, onto the internet, and look at AOL.com. My computer connects with AOL.com, and I can look at its web pages. Now, let's say that I want to send an email to Aunt Ruth. Aunt Ruth has AOL dial-up from home, and I've got a Gmail account. I log on to gmail.com and compose a message to Aunt Ruth's email address, auntruth@aol.com. Once I click send, gmail.com sends the email to AOL.com. The next day, Aunt Ruth dials into AOL servers and retrieves the email. Whenever an email, picture, or web page travels across the internet, computers break the information into smaller pieces called packets. When information reaches its destination, the packets are reassembled in their original order to make a picture, email, web page, or tweet.
Okay. So does that give you an idea of what a computer network is? You're sure why not? Okay. So let me talk a little bit about what I did with whatever I'd learned at USC and even before that. So I was really excited to start my first job as a programmer. I was developing a lot of code and, of course, testing it. I worked mainly in a lot of networking companies because that was where my passion was. But I sort of coded for about 3 or 4 years and started discovering myself in the process. I loved being a computer programmer, but I realized that I loved talking to other people as well. And just like you can see, most of the times, at least back then when I started my work, a lot of us had to just sit in our cube and code all day, all night. And there was not too much interaction. Later, I really got fascinated with the job that my manager was doing. I found that my manager had a lot more opportunities to interact with people, look at projects, break it down, and sort of be the boss. Who doesn't want to be the boss? So I decided, yay, I want to be, you know, a manager. And then it was not very easy, but there was a time I was managing 3 different teams across the globe. There were quite a few programmers and testers reporting to me. And as I became a manager, I started venturing into the business side of the organization. How is the product designed? How is it sold? What is needed to reach out to the customers? And that's when I decided that management and engineering is awesome. It's great. I can be the boss of people, but that's not something where my passion is. I like more interaction with respect to how do I talk to customers? How do I solve their problems? How do I design good products? And that's where I became a product manager. So does anybody here know what a product manager does?
Manage products.
Okay, manage products. So I asked my 11-year-old what a product manager does, and she said that product manager designs the product and also lets the programmers know how to build the product. So in summary, that's what a product manager does, and that's my role now. So I'm currently working at Cisco, and I'm a product manager at Cisco. I love doing my job, and at Cisco, I'm in the security group, which builds products for most of the Cisco's networking products. So do you see those white boxes everywhere? Do you see the white boxes there in the room? The one with the blue LEDs? They're all from Cisco. They're all wireless access points. Do you know how Wi-Fi works? It's using those access points. Now, security is a big thing because anybody can hack into anything. Anybody can hack into those access points too. So my group actually builds software and hardware to protect these access points and to protect the network. So let's see a little bit about the kind of products that my group builds.
While you're watching this, I'm hacking your company, grabbing your data, stealing your customers' secrets. There's an army of us, relentlessly unpicking your patchwork of security. Think you'll spot us? You haven't so far.
The next wave of the internet requires the next wave of security. We're ready. Are you?
Did that scare you guys? No, that did not. You can be one of those hackers. There are good hackers too, so you can be one of those. So that's the group that I work in, and I really love my job because it's the world of security, the world of hacking is extremely fascinating. People, there are good people, there are bad people. Every time, you know, the good things that they've won the war, there is something else new that is lingering out there. So it's a very interesting landscape. Okay. That's my day job, that's what I do, but on the side, I'm really interested in all the other technologies that are happening as well. So I still code, and I co-founded a company which is in the virtual networks and cloud space, and again, it's a bit complicated to explain what I did there, but I'm also working on a mobile app, which I might launch soon. But currently, my interest is in the drone space because I think that there are a lot of problems around that you can solve with drones. So that's what I do in my spare time. Now, sometimes when you look at how technology has evolved in the last 10, 15 years, you might think that there's not much in the future. Whatever we had to do, it's already out there. But that's not how the future looks like. There are a lot of problems which need to be solved. Climate change is one of the bigger problems. You need very complex technologies. Now, I don't know if we are too late to prevent it, but at least to mitigate the effects of it. If you think about how the world looks like by the time you grow, you might have challenges around problems to solve around feeding 9 billion people, an area where you can use your expertise. If you're thinking about space, exciting things happening there. Maybe there is another Earth sitting there. How do you go populate the Earth? How do you travel? Some of the interesting problems that you can solve. Robots, they're coming, they're here. How do you program them? How do you automate them? A lot of exciting opportunities. And all the solutions are not going to be very simple. The solutions lie in a complex mix of both science and technology. So there are a lot of problems to solve, and there are a lot of possibilities in the future. And I'm really looking at this group to see if some of you can be part of the solution. So there are a few things that I want to leave you guys with, which have helped me in my career. The first thing is curiosity. Be curious, okay? Ask questions. Don't hesitate. There is no dumb question. Always be curious. The second thing that has helped is teamwork and being a good listener like you guys are today. You know, listen, because sometimes when you're talking to people, when people are expressing their ideas, you might get newer ideas. You might build on new ideas. Share, be a team player, because most of the problems, whether you're trying to solve for the future or if you're going to work, cannot be solved alone. It takes a team. It takes a village to solve any of the problems. And the third thing is work hard. This is my mantra. I don't know if you've heard the concept of 10,000 hours. But it's said that Mozart, when he started writing music at the age of 7, he sucked at it. But he continued, he worked hard, and at the age of 17, 18, his pieces started gaining recognition. So when you hear about Mozart and his music, you don't hear anything about the music that he produced when he was 7, but you hear about the music that he produced at 17. So work hard, be at it. Pick anything that you love and like, and have practice, patience, master your craft, and you'll be extremely good at it. Any questions? Thank you.
All right, so we do have some time for questions. So if you have a question, raise your hand, and I will come over to you with a microphone.
Do you think that overall drones will improve like our life or make it worse? Because like I see they're being used in like warcrafts, like as warcrafts and bombings and stuff like that.
There is always, you think of any technology, there is always a good side and a bad side to it. Yes, drones can be used in Warcraft, but drones are used in a lot of other applications too. For example, search and rescue. Right? If somebody is lost, maybe hiking in the mountains, it's humanly impossible to go look at all the areas, right? Drones are helping out there. If you're looking at things like wildfires, can drones help there? Can they detect any fire happening beforehand? Drones can help there. So there's definitely good and bad, and we need to focus on the good. So yes, human life can be improved quite a bit with drones. I see one more question. One more. I'll get. You had a question.
What is the two difference between the hacking, the good side and the bad side?
Oh, good side and bad side of hacking. Now you're putting me on the spot. Well, even the hackers who are bad, they do it as a job. But there are hackers whose job is to prevent others from hacking into your group. So at Cisco, we have a group of elite hackers whose job is to look for malware, look for bad hackers, things that they put out, and to prevent those kind of attacks. So there's not much. So it depends on whether you're working for a good side or the bad side. But yeah. Any other questions? Does anybody here want to become a hacker? You want to become a hacker? Awesome.
Has one of your hackers failed to stop another one?
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you guys know about this attack that happened last year. It's called WannaCry attack. It happened mostly on Microsoft computers. There was a vulnerability on Microsoft, and some of the hackers took advantage of it. And all the people who were using Cisco products did not have to, get affected by the attack. So yeah, we are constantly working on it.
Any other questions?
What career do you need to choose to become a computer scientist to like hack? Like, the good ones.
Sorry.
So what can you do to become a good hacker? What career path would you choose?
Well, the first thing is to learn how to program. That's very important. Go get a degree in computer science. And then right now, a lot of universities are actually building careers and focus areas on the security side of things. So you can go get a degree there. But other than that, right now, there are a lot of resources online that you can start looking at. Maybe you can just go do a Google search about, how to build a small hacking program, and you will find a lot of resources. So maybe you don't have to wait till you go to college. You can start right now. And maybe that's not a good idea. I'm giving you all, but use it for good purposes.
All right, any more questions? Well, the good news is, you all, is that she's going to be joining us for lunch. So if you do have other questions,
yes,
please feel free to ask her personally during lunch. Now, I would like to wrap up with one question myself. You gave such a great talk, and you had some really interesting questions that I want to learn a lot more about. But one thing I do want to ask you is, what are some final words of advice that you want to give these students as they start thinking about what they might want to do with their future?
So the one advice that I would definitely give is pick anything in the area of science and or technology, because the way I see the future evolving, whether it is arts, whether it is business, the technology is taking over all these areas. So pick one, be very passionate, and of course, work hard at it. And that's my final piece of advice. Thank you.